welcome everybody. Tonight we are launching the first of our national campus tour with our speaker, John Noyes, here from Stand to Reason. We are really grateful to have him here. At the end of tonight's workshop, I'll put a picture up of the rest of the events we have running across New Zealand. In case you don't know who I am the New Zealand Campus Director for Thinking Matters. I currently live in Auckland and I'm operating 3 campuses up here. Please pray for me as we begin to try and start clubs across the nation. I believe that I need to announce that we're having a conference in August in Auckland. So those of you who are in different areas, you can join our social media and you'll be able to find out what other conferences are happening across the country. But the one in Auckland is in August, and we have Sean McDowell, yes, Josh McDowell's son, who is amazing and very well educated. He will be running or headlining our conference in Auckland in August. So please check out our social media, go to our website and sign up, subscribe to our email notifications, and you will get all the information you need to buy tickets. We currently have early bird tickets on sale right now. And during this campus tour across the nation, we have very special 33% off student tickets. So if you know any students from any tertiary education, any high school, they can buy their student tickets, which are 33% off now. And they are actually over 50% less than the main adult tickets. So they get a very, very good price to come to the conference. So please share the details of our August conference with as many students as you can, as we want to train up the next generation of New Zealand Christians. So with everything covered, I'll hand it over to you, Jonathan Noyes, and I hope you all enjoy it. Cheers.
All right, guys, it's really good to be with you. I think it'd be good just to start by telling you a little bit about myself. I work for an organization called Stand to Reason. You can find our stuff at str.org. And if I were to give you a brief bio, it would include the fact that I was raised an atheist. And tonight, what I'd like to do is I'd like to do an atheist role play where what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that I was an atheist. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my atheist hat right here. So when this hat goes on, I'm going to pretend I'm an atheist. And I would love to interact with you guys. So if you have something to say, make sure you hit that raised hand button, and then we'll try to get to you as soon as possible. So, but keep in mind, I am really a Christian. So don't kill me, for what I'm going to say. And I look forward to seeing how it goes. And so with that, I'm going to put the hat on. But once the hat's on, I'm an atheist. Okay, so here we go. Let's see what happens. All right. Hey, good evening, guys. I am always impressed when I am invited by a group of people like you guys. I'm assuming most of you in this chat room are Christians, and I know Thinking Matters. It's run by Christians, which is really great. And I like to start out by saying, I have a confession to make. I am an atheist, which means I don't eat children. I don't eat little babies for dinner or anything like this. Like I'm a normal, real person just like you. I was actually just raised without a faith, and really, I grew up in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And as I grew up, my parents, there was no real discussion about God. There was no real kind of introduction to blindly like following some God in my house. So I blossomed and bloomed ultimately into atheism, especially into high school, my later college career. I went to American University, which is in Washington, D.C., back in the States, and I majored in criminal justice. And that's really where my atheism bloomed and blossomed, especially as I started thinking about moral principles, the law, and legal things. And I actually ended up working at a law firm for a number of years. And that's really where I butted into an atheist. And to be honest with you, one of my favorite things to do is to have conversations like this with Christians, because I like to know why you think what you think. And I'm hoping that maybe we can have some of those conversations with each other. One of the main reasons why I'm an atheist is I just think everything is, it's relative. who here grew up in, and you don't need to push the button, but who here grew up in a Christian house? Like, show your hand. Your parents are Christian. Yeah, this is like most everybody. You know, and I think that this is indicative of how we decide what we're going to believe. You see, your parents, they're Christian, so what they did is they taught you how to believe and what to believe, and then you mature as a person, and then ultimately you believe what they believe. But in the end, I don't think there's any such thing as truth, especially when it relates to religious belief. I think you know, it's a lot like music. I don't know what kind of music you guys are into, but some of you guys might like Taylor Swift. Some of you guys might like Bruno Mars. I'm a Led Zeppelin guy. I don't know if you guys listen to Led Zeppelin all the way down here in New Zealand, but you know, it's up to you to decide which type of music you really like. Well, it's the same thing with religion. Decide what you want to decide, believe what you want to believe, but in the end, just don't force your religion on me. You know, keep you know, Sunday mornings is fine, but you don't need to press it into the schools, and not everybody wants to hear what you have to say about religion. So in the end, you know, it's just a matter of personal opinion. What do you guys think about that? Does that make sense to you guys? It's just a matter of personal preference. Does anybody have any pushback or anything that they want to add to that? Did you just hit your hand button? I see one person with their hands. How do I answer? Let's see here. Ask to unmute. Annette. Let's see. Can I? Is she unmuted? Annette. Oh, we got a bunch of people here.
When we try, we have to ask you to unmute. Unfortunately, we can't unmute you directly. You're going to have to unmute yourself when we send the request through.
Oh. Gerard, you seem to be able to speak right now. How's it going, man?
You have to do it.
Good. And nice to meet you, John.
Oh, man, it's really good. Thank you so much for being brave enough to allow an atheist literally into your living room.
Hey, no problem at all. So, John, I'm just curious, what do you know about the claims of Christianity?
No, I still can't hear you. Hold on. I'm not able to hear. Oh, you can? Oh, there you go. Okay. Sorry about that, Gerard. My volume was messed up. What were you saying?
Okay. John, I'm just curious to know what is your understanding of the claims of Christianity?
Well, sure. I think the claims of Christianity are pretty much the same as every other religion. That, you know, there is a God of some kind, and this God requires of you certain things. Mainly, you have to believe a certain way in order to gain access to what you would say is heaven, but eternal life and glory. If you deny those certain principles, in your case, Jesus, you spend the rest of eternity burning in hell. I think that's basically the main principles of Christianity. Does that line up kind of with what you're thinking?
Yeah, at a high level, it does. And I can understand that if you grew up in an atheist home with no exposure to Christianity, that you yourself would become an atheist. But I'm just trying to clarify something you said before. You said that, you know, if you believe in God, that's fine for you, and maybe true for you, but not for me. Yeah. So do you think there's no such thing as absolute truth?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I get this a lot, actually. I would say there's no such thing as absolute truth when it pertains to issues of morality and religion. I think that those things are kind of off limits as far as truth. If you want to talk about like an objective truth, an absolute truth, it's fine. As if you want to talk about science, you know, gravity is an absolute truth, stuff that you can kind of prove. You know, I need evidence. That's one of the main reasons why I'm not a Christian is I don't see any evidence, any evidence that you can actually prove like you can with science. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of, I guess. Have you taken a look at any of the evidence that there is for Christianity, for the truth of the Christianity of the claims?
Yeah, I think I have. It's all really underwhelming. I think it's hard to believe in something like all the evidence that I've been given comes from your Bible. It's a book that was written 2,000 years ago. It's been, translated a million times over, and we can't really tell what's in it. So I don't consider that, good evidence. So yeah, I've looked at some of the claims. I'm open to new stuff all the time.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can understand why if you're listening to Christians say, well, I believe the Bible because it's true. Well, that doesn't really prove anything.
Well, isn't that what every Christian says?
No, it's not actually. There are a number of good lines of evidence that kind of support the truth of Christianity that don't rely on the Bible itself. If you listen to someone like William Lane Craig, he might take you through a range of lines of evidence. There's a teleological argument where you look at the arguments for design. For example, if you look at the universe we see around us and the fine tuning involved, you see strong evidence for a designer, that what we see around us is in fact designed, and that I don't think you can prove Christianity is true like you can prove that 2 + 2 = 4. But I think a helpful way to approach it is to ask, what is the best explanation for what we see around us?
Yeah.
And
I understand that. But I think you just kind of summed it up for me. You can't prove Christianity is true like you can't prove 2 + 2 = 4. And actually, I've interacted with William Lane Craig quite a bit. I've read his book, Reasonable Faith, and I've read about probably a dozen or so others of his, and I think he offers, you just said it, he offers some possible explanations, but you got to ask what's most probable. And the probability of a sky daddy, this uncreated, where did God come from if he created everything else, right? So God had to come from somewhere, because everything that exists, and this is what William Lane Craig says, everything that exists has a cause. The universe has a cause. Therefore, the universe exists. Therefore, the universe has a cause. So it's like, where'd God come from? And I think that, he offers some possible things, but it's not probable. I would much rather, wait for kind of science to explain these things, so then we can be sure of it, like 2 + 2 = 4. I think oftentimes what Christians do, especially with the areas of science, is it's God of the gaps. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. We don't understand something, therefore we're just going to say God did it. And I think I don't think that's the right way to do it, Gerard. I think I want to follow the evidence where it leads, and I just don't see a ton of evidence. At least, a lot of the evidence that I see is, I think, misconstrued, kind of like what William Lane Craig does in the fine tuning. For example, if you introduce like the multiverse, right? If there are an infinite number of universes, the chances of having one like this one and having one support life in one solar system in one planet get really, really good. So I think we just need to kind of open our minds to what science tells us. Sometimes we might just need to wait on science. It wasn't too long ago, when we heard a clap of thunder, we thought Thor was angry. Or today, we had to cancel this event, or not cancel, but we had to pivot and move to a Zoom call because rain was falling from the sky, and it wasn't that long ago that we would have explained rain falling from the sky because, maybe the gods were kind of mad at us. But Gerard, I really appreciate those. I'm going to get to some of these other hands here. And so I'm going to ask, sure. Let's see here. Aldrich, if I mispronounce you guys' name, I am real sorry. Chalk it up to I'm just a silly American. And so let's see what we got here. Aldrich, man, how you doing?
Hey, John, how's it going?
Man, I love your glasses, dude.
It's good. It's good. I just have a question to what you said. Earlier, you said that you want to follow the evidence.
Yeah.
I've two questions that's kind of stringed upon each other. Firstly, how are you sure that God does not exist and that the Christians are wrong? And a follow-up question to that, well, if you ask a lot of historical scholars, the Bible is probably from a historical veracity perspective, it's the most credible piece of ancient text that's actually surviving throughout history right now. So I think it's worth a listen. You have 24,000, over 24,000 versions and copies. So if you're looking for evidence and truth, there must be some sort of truthfulness in that piece of text and strand of written text from ancient text.
Aldrich, you bring up a really great point. And I've looked into this, right? So I've looked into this, and I have no problem with most of the historical claims that are made in the Bible. Okay, Jesus existed. I'm not one of those crazy Jesus mythicist guys. But where my problem comes in has to do with what parts of the Bible. Okay, what parts of the Bible are you considering historically accurate? Because there's a lot in there. There's a lot of mistakes. Bart Ehrman. Have you guys ever read Bart Ehrman? I've interacted with him too, and he's used to be a Christian, but based on the evidence, he's no longer a Christian. And it's actually one of the reasons why he's not a Christian anymore is because of the thing that you're bringing up. He said that he just saw so many errors. Okay, there's around 140,000 words in the New Testament. Okay, 140,000 words. Did you guys know that there's upwards of 400,000 errors in the New Testament? You guys say, no way, John. No, I am absolutely right. The woman at the well. This is the beloved story of Jesus at the well, and he meets a Samaritan woman, right? That wasn't supposed to be there. It's a late addition. Or how about the long ending of Mark? Have you guys ever read the last 9 verses of Mark? Aren't supposed to be there. So my question is which bits of history do you take as reliable, and which ones do you question? I think the overarching historicity of especially the New Testament is okay. Jesus lived. Some of the things that are independently verified by non-Christian sources are true. I think he had a following of people, but there were a lot of people during that time that had a following of people. Where I get off the train of historicity with the New Testament are the miracle claims. And this is true when let's use the standard of doing history, right? The science of history. We're going to apply it equally across the board. And you read Plutarch's Lives, you read Tacitus, you read Pliny, the younger and the elder, you read any of these guys, and none of them have miracles. And that's how we know we can trust them. But once you start talking miracles, Aldrich, I hop off your train, man. But I welcome you to respond to that, Aldrich. I kind of went on for a little bit. Hold on. Do I have to ask you to unmute?
Okay, thanks, John. That's a very interesting thing, but I think for truth to be truth, there must be evidences from multiple parts and aspects of it. And you did kind of claim that you don't fully reject the truthfulness of the Bible and the historical value of it. So there must be some value and truth for it. If it's just miracles, I guess if you look at the fundamental arguments for Christianity, there's also testaments for the resurrection, which is actually at the heart of the discussions of whether or not Jesus is God. And there's some credible arguments there that testifies as strongly, not just as well as the miracles. So what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, Aldrich, don't mute yourself, because then I have to give you permission again. So my question is, 1, what are they? And 2, are they independently verifiable? I mean, are they verified? Are these pieces of evidence verified by non-Christian sources?
Non-Christian sources.
Outside the New Testament, man. The New Testament authors are biased, obviously. So you can't trust just the New Testament on this stuff.
Well, I think you have a lot of scholars that's writing and building upon the writings of the ancient text. You have a lot of early church fathers who has written on the resurrection. That's actually outside the New Testament. There's a direct line of historical sources written from those ages to now. And I think that even strengthens the claim for Christianity. And what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think, again, where you're talking about Christians that are trying to prove Christianity true. Of course, if you're okay, so if I'm somebody in the early Near East or ancient, like the early Far East here, and I'm a Christian, of course, if I'm writing, I'm gonna try to make my writing support my worldview. And then we see this all over the place. Actually, we see early Christians. I just mentioned 2 errors in the Bible. There's also errors there's also copyist errors in other works of history where Christians, what they try to do is they try to make their story more credible by adding things in. And this is a proven fact in Josephus. Josephus was an ancient historian, a Jewish historian, not Christian. And he told us a little bit about Jesus. Of course, he stopped short with any type of supernatural thing. And then all of a sudden, the copyists, the Christian copyists who were copying over Josephus's works and his annals, or I forget the name of his work off the top of my mind. But they added in things to support the Christian worldview. And luckily now we know that they're not supposed to belong there, so we can rule them out. So I think we need to look at, like, I need unbiased sources testifying, especially to something as incredible as a resurrection. It has to be pretty substantial evidence, and I just don't see it anywhere else. It's also people don't raise from the dead. We just don't see it ever. Medically speaking, I mean, it's an impossibility. Does that make sense, Aldrich?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Do you have anything to say, or should I go to another hand raise that I can get back to you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can give other people a chance.
A shot. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Philip, it looks like you're next, man. I'm going to ask to unmute you. Philip.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, man. How are you?
Good. So I was just wanting to ask, going back to the 400,000 errors in the Bible. Have you looked at any of the not errors, but variations? Have you looked into
errors? Is a good word. They're errors.
Now, have you looked into the composition of those variations?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I have. I mean, sometimes you guys are going to say, Christians are going to say they don't change anything, but they're still errors, man. Like you literally have people adding endings onto books. Wasn't it Jesus? Hold on. Wasn't it Jesus who said at the end of Revelation, supposedly, that if anybody adds to this book, it's like anathema and they should like burn in hell forever or something. So what about the long ending of Mark? I mean, how many of you guys have that crossed out in your Bible?
So with those just those 400,000 variations, most of them are just minor differences in spelling or in word order. And so the actual instances where those variations make any difference at all to interpretation or understanding of the meaning is actually very, very few, and none actually impact any of the main doctrines of the Bible.
Well, Philip, have you ever read this guy named John Dominic Crossan?
No.
Okay. So John Dominic Crossan is a theologian, Christian, and he runs this thing called the Jesus Seminar. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of Christians, and what they did is they actually got together and investigated these errors that they found in the New Testament, trying to figure out what was actually true and what was not true, meaning what was in the original text and what wasn't in the original text. And in the end, they found that of all of it, only one of Jesus's sayings can be verified. Only one. And it's the same saying that is reiterated by every other major world religion, and it is to love your neighbor. So, I mean, I think there's scholars out there who would disagree with what you're saying. John Dominic Rosick, the other, half dozen or so people at Jesus seminar.
Sure. There are also many scholars who would agree with what I was saying. And I think many, many more. I'd like to highlight the work of Peter J. Williams. He's done a lot of work on the historicity of the Gospels. And what he shows in his book is that so many of the thousands of minor, tiny details in the Gospels are true of first century, of the time and the place. So like down to the names, minor details of geography, like all these tiny little seemingly insignificant details are things that people would only know if they were living at the time and writing at the time. Yeah. If someone was inventing these in Egypt centuries later, they wouldn't have got those details right. So his point is that if they got all those tiny details right, we can trust them on the big events as well. And we can see that because even Bart Ehrman says that the resurrection of Jesus was believed from pretty much from the event. So the changes in the Bible that you're talking about don't seem likely at all from this perspective.
Let me ask you a question here, Philip. Insignificant changes. How many angels were at the tomb supposedly when Jesus was found missing? How many angels?
Well, there were 2 trips to the tomb.
There were 2 trips to the tomb. Okay.
Yes.
And how many? And how many angels?
Well, there may have been different numbers of angels seen on different trips. And besides, in order to mention one angel, it doesn't necessarily mean there are not other angels there.
But this is what I'm talking about, guys. It's like, it depends what gospel you read, right? It depends what gospel you read. To answer these, I have to leave this hat on. Sorry. It depends what gospel you guys read. Because each gospel tells a different story. This is a major thing, and what happens is as Christians, and I understand why you do this. I'm not saying like I'm really not trying to be harsh or anything. I'm really not but I understand why you say this, because you guys want something. You guys want this story to be true because it's significant to your own life. But the thing is there are people of other faith backgrounds who believe things just as sincerely as you, and they go through the same hoops. I mean, you mentioned like the early people believed it. Well, sure, they believed it, but there's a difference between what's true and belief, right? We all hold any number of false beliefs. True is what actually happened. And that's what I want to get at. And something else that you kind of pointed at, which I think is really good. You kind of proved my point here is I believe in the historicity as far as it goes. But once you start talking miracles and resurrections, certainly, these radical claims need radical proof. And that's why I just can't believe it. Not based on this. And it's so much different than science, right? So science doesn't, you don't need any type of blind faith. Like it's not this leap of trust. It's just, we test the evidence and then we kind of reevaluate the hypothesis and it moves forward. And that's a beautiful thing about science. It's not stuck, and Christians are a little stuck. Not just Christians, all people. I mean, you have modern day Muslims who believe something so much that they're willing now to die for it. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes I think they probably believe it more than you do because they're willing to do incredible, like these oftentimes awful things, which is, I mean, but they're equally wrong. And because I think their text is equally as corrupted for the same reasons as I'm saying here.
So there's a lot of difference there. When you read a scientific journal and you read a scientific fact in that journal, do you go and do the experiment yourself or do you take it on faith that it's true?
Well, no, I don't. I mean, faith is blind trust without evidence. When I read a scientific journal, I'm getting evidence for my worldview or for the thing that it's supplying. So I'm getting evidence from that. That's not faith. Faith is blindly believing something because a bunch of people told you it's so. And that's religious belief, not scientific knowledge. which
okay.
is how I'd say.
Yeah, my final comment would be that what the Bible has is eyewitness testimony, not something that's just being heard and repeated.
No, wait, well, the only reason why you say it's eyewitness testimony is because it testifies itself that it's eyewitness testimony. Well, of course, if I'm trying to prove a story, right? Like if I'm trying to prove a story, I'm gonna include all the stuff I can to try to make it seem as true as possible. You know, and unfortunately, I think the gospel authors, I mean, the gospels don't line up. They contradict each other in major things, like number of angels in the tomb, number of days in the tomb, long ending of Mark, woman at the well. I mean, these are like major differences, but that's okay. I mean, we can explain them away if we want, but yeah. So, but Philip, man, I really appreciate you interacting with me, and thank you for being so cordial. Sometimes people like yell and scream at me and then call me a heathen and tell me I'm going to hell. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, more I could say, but I'll let others have a go.
Thank you. You know, just a side note, I've done this in other places, not online. This is my first time ever doing this actual talk online. And I've gone to like some of your churches and I do this, and no lie, like I was just in Seattle, Washington, back in the States, and I had about 250 people in the audience, and I'm telling them like why I believe what I believe, you know, and I'm just pressing in like I am here. And there was one guy who got up and he pointed his finger at me like this, and he said, "You are going to hell." And then he left. And I was like, I looked at the pastor, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to need security. And the pastor was like, that was the head of our security team. You know, I was like, oh no, you know, so anyways, I appreciate you guys being super cordial. Cedric, man, Cedric, I'm going to request that you get unmuted here. How's it going, man?
Hey, John, good. How are you, mate?
Oh man, I am doing really well. Thank you guys for having me out here, and thank you for allowing me to kind of press into you like this.
Yeah, well, you know, I think you'll be doing even well. I prophesied by the sun rising, you'll become a Christian in some miraculous way. So there you go.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you what. If that happens, there's definitely a God, because that would take an act of total miracle, man. Total miracle.
So so you've really given us a bit of a smorgasbord of different objections. So thanks for that. You've really done your homework. Yeah, just a couple of preliminary things on the historicity of the gospel, especially the resurrection. You know, to say it's all a big hoax really is quite a it would be quite a task, and you got to look at the, you know, the motivations of those involved, and you know, 11 out of 12 of those guys of the, you know, promoting the supposed hoax got, you know, skinned alive in various ways, and they didn't make any, you know, money out of it. They didn't make any land out of it. They didn't have any, you know, worldly reason to give their lives for a lie. And also, you know, you've got issues around the empty tomb, what happened to the body of Jesus. You've got the very embarrassing parts of the gospel that would be strange for them to put in, the first witnesses of the resurrection being women whose testimonies weren't that valued in the ancient world. You have you know, the supposed leader of the early faith, Peter, betraying, you know, the founder. So you've got a lot of embarrassing detail that wouldn't really have been put in unless maybe it was historical. And in terms of the claims to eyewitness accounts, the archaeologists are finding, you know, corroborating evidence to the gospel accounts like every day. The porticos of Solomon's, the porticos of Solomon, they found them, etc., etc. Yeah. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is your claim at the beginning that when it comes to morality, that it's basically there's no absolute truth in that. So you'd say something like, you know, if you're choosing between burying your loved one or cremating your loved one, there's no moral truth to such a practice.
Yeah, well, I mean, once you're dead, man. Like I tell my wife,
for all of
man,
morality.
I don't care what she does with me, because guess what? I don't care. Because you know why I know I don't care? Because when you ask dead people if they care, what do they say?
They're quite quiet these days.
Yeah,
so you're saying, but are you saying that's true for all moral claims, that there's no truth value to them?
I'm saying, man, you do you. You know, like if you want to be buried, if you want to be cremated, whatever you want to do.
I'm saying that's a general principle.
Just don't hurt anybody. Just don't tread on me, is the saying we have back in the States. Don't tread on me, man.
All right. So you're saying that as a general principle, though, that's an example of a principle that there's no absolute truth when it comes to morality.
I'm saying you do you.
Yeah. So morality is based on opinion. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's pretty well established that morality, moral systems are based on social conventions, and that's why we evolve. You know.
All right. Okay. That's cool. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So would you then to be consistent? Would you be claiming to us all here today that there's no moral difference between potato peeling a potato and potato peeling a politician?
Well, I think it might be better to potato peel a politician these days. But
okay, politicians are bad example. We don't like politicians.
Man. I mean, so you could try to potato peel a politician, but good luck, man. Because right now, the way our current culture is, both your culture here in New Zealand as well as my culture back in the States, we have laws that we've come to as a society and as a culture that say that's against the law, and then there's a penalty for that. So you could do it, go for it, man.
There's lots that law doesn't necessarily have anything to do with morality. There's lots of immoral laws like apartheid, etc., etc. So that's my point. I'm not talking about legality. I'm talking about morality. You know, and the point is, are you saying to us that there is no moral difference between torturing a child and peeling a potato?
No, I'm saying that I think we have evolved in such a way to understand that see when we start throwing the moral language in there, I think that it's a mistake, because like, have you ever heard of the Hegelian dialectic? Right.
Yeah.
So this is Hegel and his theory on how we've arrived at morals, and it's a system of trial and error, and it's all based firmly in the science of evolution. So basically what happens is a culture and a society, they come to what we even might perceive as moral absolutes, but then they be through a system of trials and errors. There's a theory that comes up. This thing is right. Oh wait, it's practiced. Oh no, it's not right. This way is better. And then you keep evolving, and it ultimately relates to ultimately survival of the fittest, propagating our genes.
So you're saying that evolution is the ultimate moral. It should be in charge of our morality. That survival of the fittest, etc.
Well, I think on a large scale, because I kind of know where you're going to go on this, right? So might makes right. Like, I mean, I understand that, but I think on a certain level, that's kind of true, Cedric. And I think that we see that out in our culture today. For the longest time, it was okay to own people in the United States because of the color of their skin. Yeah. You know, and then what we do is through a series.
So there's nothing wrong with that compared to what we do now. There's no moral progress since then.
No, I think there's been progress, but you attach the word moral. I think it's better on an evolutionary perspective for people to be free. You know, and I think that this is proven. And you know,
so you have got a morality. It's just based on evolution. So you're saying that so in our society we look after the weak members of our species with a social welfare system, whereas a group like the Nazis would kill off the weak. So
do you guys have legalized abortion here?
But if you just stick to the point.
This is the point. Like, so is abortion legal here in New Zealand?
It is, yeah.
So you're telling me you don't kill off the weak?
We do, but
that's totally accepted in your culture.
No, but Christians are very centered on the fact that those lives have intrinsic and absolute value. So that's not a criticism of Christianity. It's a criticism of atheism who subscribe to these social Darwinistic policies.
I think it proves my point, Cedric. I think it proves my point that a society comes to own like what is morally right and wrong over a course of a period of time. I think it evolves. And you just said that a society, a more just society, takes a better society. What's that?
So you support that? So you support the killing off of the weak?
I mean,
because evolution that's what happens in nature, isn't it?
I mean, sometimes I think I do not necessarily have a problem with abortion. I don't have a problem with euthanasia. And those are, I mean, I'm just going to bite the bullet, man. And those
should we kill them off too?
Who?
If they're elderly and infirm, they're evolutionarily speaking, they're useless. So should we kill them off too?
I think that I would be willing to consider that if we wanted to like put it to a vote. You know, I'm willing to entertain it. We already do. I mean, we already do.
Yeah, but I know that's what we do, but what morality isn't about what we do. Morality isn't about what we do. Morality is about what we ought to do. And I'm asking you, who claims there is no
what you want to do, because this is what you got. This is the law. These are the laws that are voted.
But is that the way we ought to vote?
Well, I'm not going to tell you how you should vote. I mean, man.
You have no compunction with killing off the elderly, the weak, the unborn. You know, so you're saying that's evolution. So that's the way it should be. And isn't that quite a Nazi kind of way to think?
I mean, if you want to call me a Nazi, are you calling me a Nazi, Cedric?
Now, I know that's not really a dumb thing in debates like this, but in this particular case, if you I think it's a fair point. If you're claiming that killing off the weak and unborn and infirm is legitimate evolutionarily speaking, and that's the only judge of morality, then you're putting yourself in that category.
Hear what I'm saying though. Hear what I'm saying is as a culture, we're all Nazis, according to you.
Are you saying that's okay?
I'm saying this is the culture that we're in, and it's come to.
Is that okay? Is that morally?
These things. I mean, I'm not saying either way, because I think you have the freedom to decide what you want to do.
So you wouldn't stand up against Nazis then? You wouldn't care.
But nobody. How are you standing up against abortion and euthanasia?
Oh, I've done a number of things. For example, the first thing you need to do is make people understand the fact that some things are intrinsically wrong, regardless of opinion and regardless of legalities. And unless you do that, anything goes.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I agree with you to a certain extent, minus the intrinsic portion of it. I think that we can arrive at the same thing, the same exact things that you're saying, but we don't need to introduce some type of God into the mix. I think that you and I think Cedric, here's the deal. Let's just get like throw the rhetoric out. You know, I think that Cedric, me and you could probably sit in a room and agree and figure out what's best. Meaning what is going to lead to most human happiness, most human flourishing. And you and I, and we can come from completely different worldviews. And I think that that's okay. Where I have
we can do that because that's which evidence that we're made in the image and
likeness
of God.
Is now you're being like, people are going to tell me, oh yeah, you can't say that. You can't say that. Well, I can say that. I am saying that. And I think that we can have an open conversation with each other and come to the similar results. We don't need to all like agree. Like, this is what I mean. Like Christians, you like oftentimes Christian, I don't want to say you guys because it's not, but there's 74 people in this chat. You know, this isn't applicable to everybody here, I'm sure. But oftentimes I feel like Christians are just like, what they're doing is they're just piling on, you know, oh, you have to believe like as if I don't believe in God, I can't believe in what's good and like what leads to human flourishing.
So are you making a moral judgment on that supposed pile-on? Are you saying that's morally bad thing to do?
No, I'm just saying you do you. Let me.
Why are you pointing it out?
You're just saying I'm not forcing my morals on you.
On. Is that wrong?
I'm just saying wrong? You do you.
But you just said,
Cedric, you know,
but you're complaining about piling on.
I think if we're not able to have a good conversation, what I'll say is, you know what, thanks Cedric for your time, but you know, obviously this isn't productive, and this is unfortunate because this is the way it always goes with Christians. It's always like my way or the highway. I'm sitting here, Cedric, saying, listen, I can meet you halfway. You know, I can meet you halfway, man. Let's talk it out. But you're saying, well, unless you believe like I believe, you can't say this.
Halfway? Would that be morally fair to meet halfway?
I think the most things in the world as we move towards advancement in the social order and social structures, I think
isn't that what objective morality is? It's advancement in the social order.
You know, so Cedric, I appreciate it, man. Let me take on. I feel like we're going in circles now, man. So
yeah, that's good talk. Thanks very much, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna do. Oh man, is it Philippe? Oh man.
Hey bro, it's Fale.
Fale?
Yeah.
And is that your real last name?
Yes, yeah.
How do you say that?
It's Lea Aitala for all.
I won't even try. That's incredible, man.
Hey man.
You know what? I might change my stance on God right now. That last name is a miracle in and of itself. Look at all those vowels.
Well, my full name is Fale Whakatahaanga Mo'oila Aitala for all, but yeah, just
I love it.
Keep it short.
Oh my goodness, that's so cool. So how are you gonna squash me?
Oh man, I think Cedric stole a lot of my questions. I did while he was talking. I did want to ask you. You did mention that you do believe in truths, absolute truths. So, but you just don't bring it into the morals, into the moral realm, or the realm of the morals. What is your definition of absolute truth?
Yeah, so something that can be proven. That's a good question. Something that can be proven.
Can you
verifiable experiential means.
So what do you mean by that?
You've read Greg Kokel's book.
Okay, now we're gonna stop. Yeah. I don't know.
I've read that too. No, but I think that's a good question. What do you mean by that? I think that that in order for me to believe something is, I like the word absolute better than objective. Absolutely true. I think the scientific method gives us a great. It is a great epistemological tool to discern absolute truth. And even then, one of the beauties of the scientific method is it's open to revision. So like, for the longest time, Newtonian physics was like, you ruled the day, and then along came, I think, Einstein or whoever revised that. For the longest time, we didn't know how the universe came about. And then, Big Bang cosmology came about. And then now even Big Bang cosmology is being reconsidered in light of quantum mechanics and the multiverse and stuff like this. So
why do you not believe that you can bring absolute truths into morality?
Because I think how much does lying weigh?
Oh, right. So, okay. My next question then is there any morals that you believe is absolutely wrong? Or are there any morals that you believe that is absolutely wrong?
That's a good question. I mean, can you give me an example of one?
Cooking of children, or just
cooking of children. Do you know anybody who cooks children?
The one thing. I'm just going back to the Bible. I
mean, how about this? I know there are certain cultures in the world today that eat their neighbors. Is it right for us to with a moral superiority? Like is it cool? I don't even know if New Zealand has like what kind of military you guys have, but say you guys like in the United States. Let's talk about I know the United States. So like, is it cool for the United States to invade some country because they're eating their neighbors and take them over?
No,
I don't know. I don't know if
is it right
to be enforcing our moral prerogatives on people.
Is it right? We'll stick to the children, the abuse of children. So do you believe there is a situation where it is okay, where it is good morally to abuse a child?
Well, I think raising, I'm not trying to offend you guys. I'm really not, but I think raising children according to Christian worldview is a form of abuse. So I think I'm willing. There's certain abuses. I mean, we give our children, we inoculate them with certain diseases. There was this thing that was going around the world. I don't know if you guys heard of it. It's called COVID-19. It was this crazy virus. And I think a lot of people subjected to their children to shots for those things, that virus. And anytime you submit your child to a shot, it's kind of an act of violence. So I think that we could make a case that that's a mild form of abuse. So yeah, I think we'd have to look at the cases individually and kind of, again, I'd like to, me and you could probably sit in the room and figure out what we would, like the line that maybe but maybe we wouldn't want to cross. But then cultures and civilizations. I mean, I've got 4 kids. You guys each, if you guys have children, you're probably raising your children differently than I'm raising mine. And there's probably, again, there's 73 people here in this chat. I'm willing to bet that there's if we all opened up our homes of how we raise our kids, there'd be calls for abuse going on where maybe you might say it's not. That was a long answer to your question, man. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I probably should have went to the extreme. So I probably should have just went straight to the
probably
extreme of yeah. Is there a time that you believe that sexual abuse of a child is good?
Yeah, wasn't Mary, the mother of Jesus, like 13?
I don't see how that's got to do with the question.
Well, I mean, I would say that like, let's talk about this. I mean, look at all of the sexual abuse that happens in your Bible. I mean, this is insane. Like this is the stuff. This is the stuff like that always comes to my mind when Christians ask me these things. I mean, you literally have, was it Moses? No, it was Noah. One of those guys was drunk. Like his daughters got him drunk so they could have sex with him. I'm hoping there's no kids here. I'm so sorry if there are. They could do an adult thing with him. You know, and this is his daughters, man. Oh, dude. And this is the book that you guys are just defending as being the word of God, or, you know, I mean, so.
You haven't quite answered my question.
Well, I think that kind of does. I think according to the culture, I think a lot of us here would justify certain acts that happened in the Bible, like Mary being pregnant. Becoming pregnant only happens one way, as far as I'm aware. And this is a firmly established biological fact, right? It only happens one way, and she was definitely not of age. But what the argument would be is, oh well, in their culture, you know, so who are we to say what child abuse is or isn't?
That still doesn't quite answer the question, because I would probably say that nearly everyone here would say that there is no case or situation where sexual abuse of a child is good or is okay, except for maybe you. So, maybe,
but I'm the only non-Christian here.
Yeah. Are you?
You guys are all drinking the Kool-Aid, man. so maybe it's the Kool-Aid, not the response. No, I think I've just like kind of not proven my point, but like I've at least like caused. I'm hoping I'm causing you to think a little bit, because like you're asking me, are there any clear-cut cases where we would justify child abuse? Right? That was the question.
Well, child sexual abuse. I was just going to abuse. Yeah.
And I'm bringing up an instance of child sexual abuse that is at the center of the Christian story. So you yourself are doing the very thing that you're trying to say that I do that's so bad. But I'm saying that I can see instances where what I would call as wrong aren't wrong, which gets me back to the you do you, man.
Okay. I have one last question before I'll pass it on to everyone else. If Christianity was true, would you become a Christian?
Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
I love listening to you, man.
I love talking to you. We should get a cup of coffee or something, man. Like meet face to face. One of the cool things is guys, for better or worse, whether you like it or not, I'm in town for like 2.5 weeks. So maybe I'll get a chance to talk with some of you guys face to face. I hope you do. I hope I do. All right, let's see here. This is William North Shore, Auckland, as opposed to William South Shore, Auckland.
Yeah, that's right.
How's it going, man? I love the color of your room. Yellow is the best color.
Yeah, that's good.
Objectively true.
I've got a very bad connection here, so I hope it stays in. So I was really pleased to see that you're a fellow Led Zeppelin fan. So I've seen them a couple of times. So do you think if you become a Christian, you're going to have to give up listening to that kind of music? And what do you think of Jimmy Page with Stairway to Heaven and Most High? Is he a believer?
Yeah, I don't think Jimmy Page is a believer. I do like Led Zeppelin. I don't know what I don't know if does it matter what music you listen to as a Christian? I guess
I think
like a major part of, yeah, I don't know if it matters. I'll ask you, does it matter what kind of music you listen to?
I think it does. He was a self-confessed occultist, but I saw him twice as a Christian. I mean, the thing I remember about the concert was the drum solo was incredibly boring, but not the lyrics. But anyway, I think you do have to be careful. You do have to be careful what you do when you become a believer. But everything is permissible as a believer, but not everything is beneficial.
Sure.
I
mean, that's a good
appeal to you. Anyway, I want to go back to your historicity. That was a long time ago you talked about Led Zeppelin, but you seem to basically, as far as I could tell, accept the historicity of Jesus, but they were different accounts. So what wasn't clear to me is, who is Jesus to you?
Oh, yeah, I think Jesus is, I think that's an interesting question. The way that it's phrased, who is Jesus to me? I don't think it's necessarily, again, I believe in facts, especially when to do with science. And this is the science of history. I don't think history has left this issue up to debate. I think Jesus, it's established fact that he was a first century Hebrew man who led a following of people. He taught good, for the most part, moral principles. And
well, you just said there weren't any such things.
Well, I think he reiterated the same moral principles that are reiterated in every other major world religion. How about that? I mean, it's funny because I was going to add the statement.
Good.
This is actually what I was.
All right, sorry to butt in. Go on, carry on.
What I was going to say is he taught good moral principles, except for the bad moral principles he taught. You know, because I mean, yeah, he had some good teachings. He had some bad. Luckily, I think we take seriously the ones that are kind of reiterated in other texts that seem to aid in our survival. And yeah, that's who Jesus is.
Well, I think what's more compelling than the historicity of the New Testament is the prophecies made in the Old Testament about Jesus, because they are dated hundreds of years before him. So it's predicting the future. So that's the thing that's hard to do.
No, but hold on, William. It's not hard to predict the future when you're writing after the future tales have been told.
So you don't believe in carbon dating? You don't think that the Old Testament is carbon dating? Because there's complete copies of Isaiah dated to hundreds of years before that Jesus was born.
Right. So let me try to be clear. So Matthew. Okay, Matthew. Would he have had copies of Isaiah to consult?
I think he probably would have, yeah.
Of course he would have. So how hard would it have been for Matthew to consult Isaiah and say, you know what? This might sound better.
I think you're missing, but that wouldn't be hard at all. But then you're saying the historicity of Jesus isn't true, that he wasn't. I mean, that Tacitus and Josephus did say that he was not just that he was a cult leader, but he was crucified. That's critical.
I'm 100% on board with the historicity of the crucifixion. I will say, I will say it's limited number of sources. The main extra biblical source that we have is Josephus. Josephus was a Jew. He could have pulled from ancient literature too. But it's also, I think it's just as likely for the early Christians to have either embellished or actually copied over some of, like tomorrow morning, if I sat down and wrote an article about how like today's events were canceled, nobody would be like, oh, you're prophetic. No, I'm relying on previous testimony, part of which is my experience, and then putting it on text. So I think that's what the early Christians probably most likely did, is they just added. The prophecy argument's not convincing for me, man.
No, I can see that, John. You're very, very cast in your ways. So it's probably better we go on to, do you believe people are spiritual beings?
I mean, you could do whatever you want, man. Like spiritual in what they believe.
Do you think there's a human spirit in us that's something different from just something that may have evolved or not?
Prove it.
I won't prove it, but what I will say is that I heard on the BBC, there was a woman who was a professor, and she was a secular professor, an atheist like yourself.
Yeah.
And they asked her, they said, what's the difference between animals and humans? And I thought, here we go. She's going to say something stupid like fire or tools, because animals dream. But the interesting thing she said was the difference was hope. And I think that the human beings have hope. And I think that hope is spiritual, and that's given to us by God. So that's just a belief I've got. So in the end, you can't get away from belief. I'll give you that, John. But, you know, I do think there's a difference between us and something that may just have evolved.
Yeah, I think maybe you've evolved in that thinking to need hope. I don't have God, and I'm just as hopeful. I think I might be more hopeful than a lot of the Christians that I talk to these days, especially in the States, are without hope, man.
Yeah, but I think actually the hope I'm talking about is the hope of eternal life. Clearly, you don't believe in life.
Yeah, I don't need that
after this. I can see that.
I've got enough.
Your mannerisms and your love of Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, I'm going to leave you to it. I've had John, I've had enough of you as an atheist now. I'm going to leave you to it. I'm giving up.
I've had enough of me too, man. That's what my wife tells me all the time. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And now we're going to go, is it Irina? Hold on, you got to unmute yourself. There we go.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I think you're having fun.
Sorry it took me so long to get to you. I like saw you like tracking up the queue.
Yeah, I'm glad I got there. So John, can you help me just understand you? You mentioned that you only believe in what is supported by evidence.
Yep.
Right?
That's right.
And you also said that if Christianity was true, then you would become a Christian.
Yes.
But at the same time, you said that when you hear about the miracles and resurrection, you're off the train.
Yes.
Right? How do these two reconcile? It just feels that there's some mismatch there.
I don't see the mismatch. I don't think miracles are verifiable claims. I don't think they can serve as evidence for something.
Okay, so if there is miracles in the story, it still can be true, right?
Yeah, I think certain portions can be, but not the miracles.
Even if they're verifiable.
Yep. So if like this is my issue with especially the New Testament in general. I'm not as well versed on the Old Testament, but especially the New Testament, is I believe the things that are independently verifiable. And this is a general principle of doing good history. You know, you want multiple sources testifying to the same thing. And so the things that are testified by multiple sources, especially outside the Bible, I'll kind of pick up and go. But miracles just simply don't happen. I mean, I've never seen a miracle. I've never met anybody that's experienced a miracle that's actually been telling the truth. I've met people who have claimed to have miracles, but then it's been actually shown that it wasn't a miracle. So I have evidence actually to the contrary. And so I think that we live in in a naturalist. I'm a naturalist as an atheist, right? So materialist. So I believe everything that exists is the product of physical process, ultimately at its core. And I think any type of miracle it just doesn't happen. So I wouldn't consider it evidence. I'd look for other explanations, maybe for explaining a miracle. Maybe, I don't know.
Don't you feel like there's a kind of a belief behind this?
Well, yeah, it's natural.
Unverified belief?
No, it's not unverifiable. I mean, I think all of us live lives ultimately dictated by the principles of naturalism. I mean, the principles of science. You know, we all look both ways before we cross the road, because we know what happens when we step out in front of a cab. It's not because we're not doing that of blind faith. The person that's living by blind faith just steps into the road regardless of what's coming. We look both ways because we know experientially if a car hits us, it's not going to be good for us. You know, so I think we know how the universe works for the most part. We know you know, the laws of physics, and then they're reliable, not because we've dreamt them up or they make us feel good, but we believe them because they're verifiable. So and miracles.
Yeah. So if Jesus' resurrection is verifiable, then you would believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm open to it. That's why I'm here, guys. I'm open to conversation. I hope that comes through. You know, I like talking.
And have you looked for the verification of Jesus' resurrection?
A lot. Yeah. I mean, I've read a lot of books.
And so what makes you believe it's not verified?
I haven't seen something that's been convincing. And actually, it's actually more than that. I would say the stuff that I read, it leads me further away, because it seems like the only people that say that Jesus was raised from the dead are Christians. There are no atheists who say that. There are no Muslims who say that. There are no Jews who say that. There are no agnostics who say that. The only people who say Jesus was raised from the dead are Christian.
So does it mean that it is false?
No, it doesn't. That in and of itself doesn't mean that it's false, but it's a good indication that something sketchy might be going on here. It's iffy.
Well, I guess if you believe that Jesus rose from the dead, you would be a Christian. You said that.
Absolutely.
So there's no contradiction there, right?
Yeah, I don't think this contradict. I mean, if you believed, isn't it in your good book? If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe he was raised from the dead, you know, you're a Christian. Isn't that what one of those guys said?
Yeah.
So those are the tenets, and it seems to me like the people who, so the historians that defend the resurrection account are Christians. And so if you could show me a bunch of people who say that Jesus, it's historically verifiable that Jesus was raised from the dead, then maybe I'd be more apt to reconsider my position. But as of right now, I need to see some unbiased sources.
Don't you think there's a direct link that a person who used to be an atheist and then they found the evidence of Jesus' resurrection, they became Christians? So that's quite direct link there. So there's nothing surprising that all those claiming Jesus' resurrection are Christians, because they identified this evidence and it convinced them.
Yeah, I think that's one interpretation, Irina. I think you could interpret that. I think I would interpret it that nobody but Christians believe Jesus raised, and that's a problem.
Well, yeah, I kind of see where you're getting from, and I think that you have a belief that you don't recognize that is not verified.
Like what?
Like you claim that you will become Christian if you have enough evidence, yet you're unable to accept this evidence.
I mean, I think it's the opposite. I think that Christians often claim there's all this evidence, and then when I ask for the evidence, it's like, here, read this Christian book. It's like you saying to me, okay, prove atheism is true, and I say, okay, here, read John Loftus, or here, read Albert Camus, or read Friedrich Nietzsche. You're gonna be like, well, they're not, of course, like they're atheists, like of course they're supporting the natural.
And I think that with the attitude, so you express your attitude that as soon as you hear about the resurrection and miracles, you're off the train. That tells me something.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it tells you that I'm a rational human being who weighs evidence. Yeah. Cool. Marina, I appreciate it. I see a bunch of people, and I don't even know what time we're supposed to be done here. But let's see. Okay, Arena, thank you so much. Man, there's so many nice people. That's the one thing that's like really undeniable about Christians. Oftentimes they are nice. So you guys have been all nice. All right, Bruce and Kathy. It's a double.
Hey, John, I think that we're going to have to wrap it up now. So we're getting really late. So if you want to take off the atheist cap, I'm sorry everyone else who's in line, but yeah, we're going to go till 10 o'clock and people are dropping off. So
okay,
let's wrap it up.
Bruce and Kathy, I'm so sorry, man, but good things must come to an end eventually. So okay, I'm gonna take the cap off now, and now I'm Christian John, and guys, I gotta say, some of you guys, and this is my first time ever doing this in this type of format, but I gotta say that a lot of you guys did very, very well. Normally, what I would do in an audience is I'd explain this. A lot of what I was saying is exactly what I would have said 16 years ago now. So up until 16 years ago, I was a hardcore atheist. And it all of what I said at the beginning is true about my history, where I come from. I was raised in a house without any faith. My mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, they are not Christian. My brother and sister are hardcore atheists still. If I found out you were a Christian, I would have loved to take you to coffee or lunch, and I would have paid, and I would have loved it because I would have wanted to really press it in your worldview. And most of the time I like to do it because I like to watch the Christians squirm, to be honest with you, because I wasn't really ever met with great answers, so and then normally what I do at this time is I'd ask you guys how you think you did. How do you guys, how do you guys think you did? Over here is a 1, and at a 1, it's like you couldn't do anything. You could not even respond to me. Like, you might even now be an atheist. Or a 10, where it's like, you guys crushed me, and now I'm like begging for mercy. I'm begging for Jesus as an atheist, And normally the people in the room, they land somewhere in the 3, 4, 5 mark, and usually that's pretty accurate, and I can gauge that because I'm in a real room with flesh and blood people, and I can see people's the way they react to me. I can interact with multiple people at one time, kind of. And with this, it's a little bit more difficult to gauge because obviously in this type of setting, the people who are going to push that hand raised button are going to be the people like Bruce and Kathy and the people I talk to, right? That might have something to contribute and they feel confident in that. So I can't take that gauge, and how you guys think you answered my objections. I think the people I spoke with, the dozen or so, you guys did really, really well pressing in on me. It's a difficult situation because I'm squirrely and I do that intentionally, but oftentimes the atheist is squirrely. And I forget who it was. Who was I talking to that kept sticking me with the moral argument? Like, he called me a Nazi. Cedric, man, props to you, brother. Like, everybody who was watching, we could all learn from Cedric there, because what he was doing was he was just focused, and he was just trying to nail Jell-O to the wall, is the saying that we have in the States. I don't know if you guys have that. You can picture trying to nail Jell-O to the wall. It just like slips down. And he did a really good job at pinning me and saying, oh, no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about this. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about this. Are you saying, and he kept doing that. It's really, really good tactic. But the question that I want to ask you guys now, because this is kind of a self-reflective question, how did you feel as we were talking, or as you heard me talking to people? You know, when I was an atheist, like just now in front of you guys, how did it make you feel inside? Because I think that's a good thermometer. It's a good test to figure out something that's really, really important. You know, when we're sitting in my experience has been, when we sit with people that we disagree with on very important issues, sometimes we get anxious. I mean, there's some of you guys here who are probably just itching to hit the hang up button. There's probably some of you guys here that are like, oh my gosh, when is that hat coming off? Because I really don't like this guy, you know. And then there's some of you like the people that I spoke with that were like, you know what, I'm going to try to take this guy on and talk to him about it, you know. And I think that this is important, because how our heart is, how we respond when we're confronted with people that we disagree with really matters. Oftentimes when we're anxious or we feel angry, even when we're confronted with people that we disagree with on these important subjects, it's because we haven't looked into our own worldview. So we oftentimes don't have reasons why we believe what we believe, you know. And this is why, you know, knowing not just what we believe, but why we believe is so important. When someone challenges my ideas, you know, I don't need to get defensive. I don't need to become offensive either, because I've done the hard work beforehand. And this is the cool thing about Christian apologetics, and one of the reasons why I really like partnering with organizations like Thinking Matters. And many of you guys here, I can see that you guys are well versed in this already. But you do the hard work before you get into the conversations. You study Christian apologetics, you study the resurrection of Jesus, the moral argument for the existence of God, the teleological argument for the existence of God, the kalam cosmological. You study all of these things, not just to build ourselves up, but so that when we engage people that we don't believe, that don't believe like we believe, we can hopefully offer them some convincing evidence for the veracity of the Christian worldview. Which brings me to another principle here. Like, I don't believe like what I believe as a Christian because it makes me feel good. It most certainly hasn't gained me anything. Before this, I used to work at law firms. I worked at two of the most high-profile, powerful law firms in the United States, and I worked in front of the Supreme Court on major legislations that affect how the country's run, and certainly jurisprudence and the way the law is practiced. I believe what I believe because it's true. And when I say it's true, I mean it's objective. It's true for all people in all places at all times. Jesus has been raised from the dead. That's why I believe what I believe. And as an atheist, I was open to that idea. Thank God, like literally thank God I was open to that idea. Like some of you guys asked me, hey, if you could get evidence that God exists, or, you know, would you consider changing your mind? And I was, and I did change my mind. Let me clue you guys in. Just how many more minutes do I have? Like, can I have 5 more minutes? Are you guys? Yeah. Are you guys okay with 5 more minutes? Okay. Well, I've just told that I can take as much time as I need. Well, I'm also a preacher, which means I can go for hours, but I won't. So I'm a Christian because it tells the true story of reality. Because the Christian worldview accurately reflects the way the world really is. And when I was an atheist, these are the things that helped convince me. I call them my bumps in the reality. And actually, throughout the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be traveling all over New Zealand talking about these. But I have the bump of stuff. Where did everything come from? You know, because it had to come from somewhere. Because and this is not complicated, by the way. This is super simple, right? All the stuff. What caused the beginning of the universe? Where did all the stuff come from? It's only one of 2 options. Either something caused the beginning of the universe, or nothing caused the beginning of the universe. And as an atheist, you know, it put me in a really hard position, a difficult position, because I wanted to say nothing caused the beginning of the universe, but at the same time, I was supposed to be the rational one. You know, the atheists are the kings of reason, right? But what comes from nothing? Nothing. So I the only option you have is something, but I didn't want to say that because that's something that caused everything to come into the existence. has to look like something specific. It has to have certain qualities that are true about it. And as an atheist, I couldn't handle an uncaused cause that's outside of its own creation, that's immensely powerful, incredibly creative, like these things I couldn't handle because, well, that's God that you're describing. And I started coming to these conclusions. That's the bump of stuff. The bump of bad was the most difficult one. And we kind of harped on this a bunch, not harped in a bad way, but we focused on this a lot. The existence of a moral depth to the world. You see, I wanted to believe that I'm the master of my own ship. I wanted to believe that there was no such thing as objective morality. But the thing is experientially speaking, as I tried to live that out, I realized two things. One is I left a wake of victims in my past. You know, when we violate people, there's something in us called our conscience that tells us that we violate people. The people who don't have that, they're sociopaths. You know, and because we're wired that way. Experientially speaking, again, we're wired to recognize moral depth as we treat other people. That's why the golden rule is the golden rule, and that's why it's reiterated. It is reiterated against throughout a plethora of religions, right? Do unto others as you would have done unto you is the way that most of us are taught it. But then the second thing is not only did I realize that I was oftentimes a victim of things that were going wrong, but I realized I was a victimizer. And being a victimizer, meaning I had victims in my wake, I needed forgiveness. And as a naturalist, where do we go for forgiveness? There is because at bottom, we are just molecules in motion, moist robots dancing to our own DNA. And you don't have to go far to find out what the atheists really think. Just read them. You know, read them. Thomas Hobbes in Leviathan, he said that life is solitary, poor, brutish, and nasty. Richard Dawkins, one of the most famous atheists alive today, he one of the new atheists, he says that at bottom there is nothing but pitiless indifference. You know, and you read William Provine, he's dead. He was at Cornell University. He says that according to the evolutionary perspective, there is no purpose, no meaning in life, and there's no free will, by the way. You know, and so you read the atheists, and at least they're honest, and that's what the honest conclusion that I came to is that there's no justice, there's no meaning, there's no purpose, and there's no forgiveness. You know, and so that's the bump of bad. I realized that bad things, when I said that what happened in the furnaces of Auschwitz was bad, I meant that it was wicked. It was actually bad. I was talking about the actions themselves, not my personal preferences, not my personal opinions. You know, it wasn't the same. What Hitler did in Nazi Germany was not the same as me saying, I hate Brussels sprouts. In other words, the existence of an objective reality, objective moral reality to the world, a moral depth, is something that we all experience. And one of the reasons why we experience it is what I call, it's one of the last bumps that I had, which is the bump of me. And somebody brought this up, and I wish you stuck me more to the wall to it, because it's a really good point. Somebody asked me, am I spiritual? Well, and what they meant by that, I think, is, do you believe in an immaterial aspect to yourself? You see, this is the soul. And I think as Christians, we don't talk about the soul enough as evidence for our worldview. Because the soul it's real. It's that thing that we're constantly aware of every waking moment of every day. It's that thing that we introspect to, that we think to, right? Our soul is I can prove that I can prove to an audience. I can prove to you guys right now that we have a soul when we have a song stuck in our head, right? So you have a song stuck in your head. How do you get that song stuck out of you, like unstuck? Do I cut open your scalp and crack open your skull and extract a song from your brain? No, because it doesn't exist. It doesn't manifest itself physically. It exists in the immaterial aspect of ourselves, our soul. Some people, they want to call it our conscience or our consciousness. And that's just to avoid, you know, spiritual implications, I think, because souls are real and we all know it. But souls, not only are the real, souls are special. Even as an atheist, I believed that human beings were special. And you guys, a number of you guys did really well pointing this out to me, like you ought not violate other people. Yes, child abuse, sexual abuse is disgusting. It's immoral. And nobody stands for it. Nobody does. Why? Well, not only because is there a moral depth to the world, not only is there an objective moral standard, but it's also because we recognize that there's something special that's being violated. Well, what is it that's being violated? Well, that's because of the type of soul that we have. We're made in the image of God. No, we're not just random quantification of molecules. We're special and unique because we're created in the image of God. And in quiet moments as an atheist, when I was like alone in my apartment, underneath my comforter at night, I would let it slip in my own mind, the desire for things to be made right. I knew right from wrong. And I knew that even as I was a victim and a victimizer, I knew that my victims, there was something special about them, because souls are real, but souls are special. It's the type of soul that they have, you know? And then not only are they real, not only are souls special, but souls are broken. And this was really a breaking point for me, that I recognized that I like I said before, I was in need of true forgiveness. And I had no offer of true forgiveness, no offer of justice on an evolutionary perspective, on a naturalistic worldview. You know, where do you turn for these things? And then you combined all of this at the same time. I was doing a lot of reading and research on actually the resurrection, which one of you guys brought up and like really tried to stick me to it. And this was a breaking point for me. I don't have a spiritual birthday. Like I can't point to like April 30th is when I became a Christian, because it happened over a period of like about 4 months. And what happened is somebody gave me a book on Christian apologetics. And then my future in-laws, they gave me a New Believer's Bible, an NLT translation, really, really easy to read, cornerstones of the faith, who's Satan, what is sin, like stuff like that. It was really great. And so I read the Bible cover to cover in the course of 3 months. And when I read it, it read like I was reading history. It just did. I didn't like what I was reading. I didn't agree with what I was reading, but I could tell that the authors were writing history. It had the sound of history. It had the feel of history, the details and stuff like this. And in that Bible, I was confronted with the person, the work of Jesus, and the resurrection ultimately. And I remember sitting in my apartment one night in Hollywood, California, and I owned this like white IKEA. I don't know if do you guys have IKEA here? I don't know if you guys have IKEA. It's like the cheap furniture store you go to when you're broke and single. And so I went to IKEA and I bought this love seat that was the most uncomfortable seat I've ever sat in. But I used to like to read in it because it was impossible to fall asleep. Like you were constantly shifting and adjusting. So I was reading in that chair on the resurrection. I remember thinking to myself, you know what? I think I solved this issue from a naturalistic perspective. Because what I did is I took all these bits of evidence, empty tomb, change in the disciples' life, change of day of worship, all of the things that all of the evidence, the events centered around the resurrection. I came up with a hypothesis. I thought that could explain them all in light of each other. And I said this to myself. I said, you know what? I think I solved it. I think aliens, this is really what I said, aliens came down. And what they did is they took the body of Jesus using their alien technology and beamed him up and healed him and then placed him outside the tomb, rolled away the stone. And that's how they have, multiple attestations to Jesus walking around 3 days after he was crucified. And then something hit me. What evidence do we have for aliens? Zero. So what was I really doing? What was I trying to avoid by positing aliens? What it came down to is I didn't want God to exist. Because if God existed, it had actual real life ramifications for my life, and things had to change. And I didn't want that to happen. And I was honest enough to say that when I honestly looked at the evidence and dropped my presuppositions, and this is a supernatural component to this too, guys. It's not all merely head and rational. That's where the word of God came in. I had that interaction with the word of God and my heart was softened, but so too was my intellect of Christian apologetics. And then that's when God got a hold of me, and then I went to seminary, and then I left the law firm. I ended up becoming a pastor of a large church, the number two guy, not the head guy. And then I left there to do what I do now, because, as ambassadors of Christ, which is what, if you're on this Zoom right now and you claim the name of Christ, you're a Christian. The Bible says that you're an ambassador of Christ, right? 2 Corinthians 5:20 says that you're an ambassador of Christ and begging on behalf of Christ to be reconciled to God. That's what we do. That means that we have a responsibility to represent God well here and now. And then that's where the third question, how do you think you did with the arguments? How do you think you did as far as you responded to me? The third question comes in, how are you guys doing at being ambassadors right now in the culture? In your workplace or even in your churches where people are kind of maybe tossing around ideas. Are we standing firm and holding to our worldview and seeking to influence culture? When we communicate, is there a ton of compromise, or are we willing to hold to certain principles? Major in the majors, of course, not certain things can slide, but are we majoring in the majors? Are we sharing the message that needs to be shared with the culture around us? These are things that we just need to be thinking about in the wake of kind of this type of experiment where we got to kind of be confronted with some of the ways that atheists would respond. And then also, are we communicating ourselves? Are we communicating truth, but how are we communicating it? Right? Jesus tells us that we're to be salt and light. We're to be salty, so we should be flavorful. People should taste us and want more of us. And that's the apologetics verse, right? 1 Peter 3:15. The context there that we are that we should be able to make a defense for the hope that we have. Always being ready or prepared to make a defense for the hope we have. Entailed in that is, in the context, is that the outward-looking world is looking in on us as Christians, and are they seeing things that they want? Are they saying, "Wow, that community, they're tight knit and they're together, they take care of each other. Wow, they're living in a way that's unbelievable. Let me go ask them about the hope that they have in times like today." I mean, in this country as well as in the States, guys. I mean, hopelessness is wreaking havoc on the culture. And we see that in increasing rates of depression, anxiety, suicide ideation, all of these things. And it's rising in every level. Well, that's because people are without hope. Well, we have that hope, but how are we answering people when they ask us about that hope? How are we communicating ourselves? And we respond with truth and love, So I brought up many issues. I want to say, as I finish here, and this is my last statement, that if any of you guys are watching and like your faith is like completely wrecked, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can trust in the Christian worldview anymore. I implore you, please come out to one of the events that I'm doing here locally over the next 2 weeks. I know some of them might be a little bit of a drive for you. If it's outside your financial means, I'll pay for you to, not fly there, but I'll pay certainly for your entrance. Or if you can't get there just because of the logistics work or whatnot, make sure you get to one of the Thinking Matters conferences or whatever it is they're doing. Reach out to them, because there are good answers to every objection that I raised. There are good answers. Again, I reiterate, guys, I'm not a Christian because it makes me feel good. I'm not a Christian because it's gained me anything. I'm a Christian because it's the true story of reality. I'm a Christian because it's true and it leads to better living ultimately. So, hey, with that, guys, I am so grateful that you endured me for, I don't even know how long, as an atheist, and then even as a Christian. And I hope to meet you guys face to face. If you do come to an event, please, will you introduce yourself to me and say, "Hey, I'm so-and-so. I saw you at the Atheist, like the live thing," because I'd really like to shake your hand and just have a conversation with you guys. So thank you guys so much. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much, John. That was really awesome. Although most of the time I was reading the chat and just laughing at some of the ridiculous things you said as an atheist and wanting to respond, but I couldn't. So I heard there was a few others in the chat who felt that way as well, but I hope that he cleared enough things up to satisfy everyone. And if he didn't, or if there are questions or concerns that any of you have, please contact us via our website, thinkingmatters.org.nz. I've put it in the chat. But just to reiterate a few things, or go into some of the events that we have coming up, I'll just quickly share a picture with you all of the events that we have coming up. Hopefully you can all see that. So this is the campus tour that we have going on in New Zealand right now with Jonathan Noyes. And as it is a campus tour, you can see that he's presenting at a bunch of universities, Massey University, AUT, Auckland University over the next 3 days. And if you want to talk to Jonathan Noyes in person, he's doing his relativism talk at Greyfriars Presbyterian Church in Mount Eden tomorrow night. And that will be the only time you can catch him in person here if you're not a student studying. So please check out our website, jump on our social media and just search Thinking Matters on Google, Facebook, or Instagram, or you can find the website I've put in the chat, and I'll put it in the chat again at the end of this. So yeah, please jump on there and check out the rest of the New Zealand tour and to see other events we have coming up. And if you can, as soon as possible, tell any person that you know at Massey University, AUT, or the University of Auckland to turn up to the campus events over the next few days. John will have time to spend one-on-one with students after his talks that he'll be doing at the universities. And this is usually really formative and encouraging, especially for students that don't even realize they want the encouragement. Sometimes students turn up hesitant and then they jump into really great conversations for a long time afterwards. From my experience being at Auckland University for the last 7 years, working with clubs, these events have really made a huge impact on the Christian clubs. It basically helps to change the culture. It inspires Christians to get involved in thinking about their faith, sharing their faith better, relating to their friends better, and it just emphasizes evangelization on campus all around. And yeah, I mean, I just really want to encourage that you get as many students to hear John's personal story, which is the talk he'll be doing at these campuses. He's not doing this atheist role play. He's actually sharing his testimony and then doing Q&A with the students. So it'll be really, really valuable for them, and hopefully not as challenging as tonight may have been for some of you. Another thing I wanted to emphasize just quickly is our August conference that we have coming up with Sean McDowell. Just wanted to emphasize that again. Please check out our website and our social media. Sean McDowell is probably one of the best speakers we've ever had in New Zealand. I'm sure John Noyes likes to think of himself as good as Sean McDowell, but he'll tell you what the truth is. But yeah, I mean, he's a great speaker. He's the son of Josh McDowell, if you ever heard of him, someone who was a great apologist for years in the past. And the same thing again, you can go to our website, you can go to social media, you can find us just by searching Thinking Matters New Zealand almost anywhere, and just look for the King chess piece, just in case there's anyone else with our name. I believe there's a ministry in the UK actually that isn't us or doing apologetics. So, but if you're not in the UK, which I'm sure all of you aren't, you should be fine. Or maybe there's one of you I think I saw in the chat. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming tonight. I hope you get some good rest, and pray for John while he tries to get rest in between the millions of things that I keep setting up for him. So thank you everyone for coming. Check out the chat for the website, and God bless.